signed off on it. Why McDavid and Draisaitl can no longer blame anyone else. Connor McDavid just made the biggest bet of his career, and he didn't take a single shot to do it. He didn't score the goal. He didn't sign the contract. All he did was say one thing publicly: "I'm good with this hire." That's it. That's the whole bet. But here's what nobody's talking about yet. By saying that, McDavid and Leon Draisaitl just did something no Oilers captain has done in years. They took the escape hatch away from themselves. If this season goes sideways again, there is no coach to blame, no front office to point at, no excuse left on the table. And one former NHL defenseman is already saying it out loud on the record in a way that should make every Oilers fan a little nervous. Stick around, because by the end of this video you'll understand exactly why the Babcock hire isn't really about Babcock at all. It's about whether the two best players in the world can survive their own endorsement. Let's set the scene. Edmonton's 2025-26 season ended the way a lot of their recent seasons have ended, with real promise and then a first-round exit, this time at the hands of the Anaheim Ducks. Another year, another early flameout for a team built around two of the most dominant offensive players the league has ever seen. So the front office needed a swing. And they took one, hiring Mike Babcock, a coach with a Stanley Cup pedigree, but also a coach who left his last NHL job in Columbus under a cloud. The league actually opened an investigation into his conduct after that departure. That investigation concluded, and Babcock was cleared to coach in the NHL again. So on paper, he's eligible. He's available. He's experienced. But cleared and trusted are two very different words. And that gap is exactly where former NHL defenseman Jason Demers planted his flag. On the Oilers Nation Everyday podcast, Demers didn't dance around it. He said flatly that he can't get behind this hire, and he made a point of saying it doesn't matter to him what the team's top players think. That's a pretty direct shot at the two names carrying this franchise. Here's where it gets interesting, though, because Demers isn't actually spending most of his energy attacking Babcock. He's pointing the lens somewhere else entirely, at McDavid and Draisaitl themselves. Why? Because both stars, along with Zach Hyman, came out and publicly backed the hire after meeting with Babcock. They talked about his experience. They talked about wanting a coach who could tighten up the team's defensive structure, an area that's dogged this roster for years despite having arguably the best player alive on the ice. Demers acknowledged the obvious point. At the end of the day, it's McDavid and Draisaitl who have to live with this coach every single day, so of course their comfort level matters. Fair enough. But then he flagged something that a lot of fans glossed over. One phrase from the players' comments genuinely surprised him: the idea that they wanted someone who could hold them accountable defensively. And Demers' reaction was basically, wait a minute. When you're talking about two of the best players on the planet, shouldn't they already be holding themselves accountable? That's not a coaching problem. That's supposed to be a superstar mentality problem that solves itself. He did soften it a bit. He understands not wanting to be both the best player on the ice and the de facto disciplinarian in the room. That's an exhausting dual role for anyone to carry. But understanding why they wanted this doesn't erase the bigger issue Demers is circling. And this is the part of the story that actually matters, the part that should be the headline, honestly. By publicly endorsing Babcock, McDavid and Draisaitl didn't just approve a coaching hire. They absorbed the risk of it. Think about how this usually works in professional sports. A GM makes a coaching hire. If it fails, the GM takes the heat. The coach gets fired, the GM might get fired too, and the players get to stand in front of the cameras and say some version of, "We just play the games, that decision wasn't on us." That option is gone now. Demers said it plainly because the players signed off on this hire so visibly, so publicly, nobody else is going to catch the blame if it doesn't work out. Not the front office, not ownership, the players. That's a massive shift in where the accountability sits. Every defensive breakdown next season, every third-period collapse, every early playoff exit. It won't just be, the coach couldn't figure it out. It'll be, the coach the players themselves picked couldn't figure it out. That's a completely different narrative, and it's a much harder one to walk back from. And Demers isn't fully sold that Babcock has actually evolved enough to justify that bet. He pointed to Babcock's introductory press conference specifically. saying he didn't see much evidence there of a coach who's changed his approach since his last stop. His real question is simple. Has Babcock learned how to get the most out of star players in 2026? Or is this the same coach with a new logo on his jacket? So here's where all of this lands for the 2026 to 27 season, and why the stakes are higher than a normal coaching change. If Babcock succeeds, if Edmonton tightens up defensively, goes deep in the playoffs, maybe finally gets over the hump, McDavid and Draisaitl get to say they read the room correctly. Their endorsement becomes a smart, gutsy call that paid off. But if it doesn't work, if the same pattern repeats, if there's another early exit, this isn't just another disappointing Oilers season anymore. It's a referendum on the judgment of the two best players in the league. It becomes part of their legacy conversation, whether that's fair or not. That's the trap Demers is describing. It's not really about whether Babcock is a good coach in the abstract. It's about the fact that Edmonton Stars removed the safety net for themselves the moment they stood up and said, "We're good with this. No middleman left. No deniability. Just results." And for a franchise that's been searching for its first cup with this era of players for a decade now, that's about as high stakes as accountability gets. So here's the real question heading into this season, and I want you to actually sit with this one. If Edmonton comes up short again, who do Oilers fans actually blame? The coach they hired? Or the two superstars who told everyone on camera that they were fine with it? Because right now, there's no clean answer to that. And that ambiguity is exactly why this is going to be the most watched storyline in the NHL this season. Not the cup favorites, not the trade deadline, this. If you think McDavid and Draisaitl made the right call backing this hire, or if you think Demers is onto something the rest of the hockey world is ignoring, drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm curious which side this channel actually leans toward once the puck drops. And if you want to see how this storyline develops as training camp opens, make sure you're subscribed, because this is one I'm going to be tracking all season long.